Hello and welcome to Decorating Pages podcast. My name is Kim Wannop and I am your host. And on this long weekend coming up, I hope everybody enjoys their time and celebrates our awesome country, because deep down it is a very awesome country and it's 250 years old. So let's get out there and celebrate the history of it. Let's do that. Just a couple things that I want to get to before talking about this episode that I put together about summer blockbusters and the design of them. Calling out a little PSA, public service announcement. It's called Respect the Set. And what that means is stop bringing food onto the set. I don't care if it's water with in a bottle that you say you're not going to spill. You're going to spill it. And I'm sick of seeing feet up on furniture or even sitting on the furniture. Like, when did that start? That people could just go onto a set and sit on the sofa with Sharpies in their back pocket that could bleed through, and just bring in their lunch, DPs, just, well, I've got to eat because I didn't get here beforehand to do it. Many cameramen in my lifetime give the excuse that I don't get a pre-call, so I need to eat. No, you don't. Having had. When you get on the set, having had, people. There is no excuse for food on the set. So I am starting up. You can hear the anger in my voice. I am starting up a little, let's make a little club called Respect the Set. If you are a set decorator, production designer, art director, swing person, props person, anyone who has photographs of why there should be no food on the set, please send them to me at kimwannop@decoratingpagespodcast.com, because I'm not going to out specific people, but I'm going to show you the disrespect that's happening in our world. And to me, a set should be treated like a museum. You do not bring food or drink into museums, and you certainly wouldn't sit on an 18th century sofa with a Sharpie in your back pocket, or eating lunch on it, or with your feet up on the table, like I have said I've seen many times. So yeah, sorry, had to rant. Let's go on to another little rant. We have 2 more prop houses in Los Angeles that are slowing down and going out of business. Hollywood Cinema Arts and PSW is starting to sell off some of their furniture, which is super duper sad to me. I must say that these resources are so needed in our world. They are specific in some realms, and when you need it, it has to be there. And with them being gone, it is going to be so much harder to especially get cleared artwork or, a style of furniture that PSW specializes in. So I am so sorry that it's happening, and throwing them a few rentals now, I know it's not going to help, but if we can, let's try to rent from them if you're out in Los Angeles and working. So thank you to them for everything that they do and have done, and I have appreciated all of their hard work in getting orders ready, and it's just sad. It is really affecting us, this slowdown in Los Angeles. So yeah, please stop in and say thank you to them, or write them a little note, knowing how much you value them if you have worked with them. Yeah, it just is sad to me. Food on the set and prop houses closing is sad to me. Well, let's get a little bit to what Wannop's watching, because I have to say, I devoured the show Elle, which comes out this week, and I will have that interview for you next week with production designer Lauren Kinsley. It's fun and it's quick. It's like, half-hour episodes, and it really serves the film. And it's not heavy, after watching that Half Man, anything seems light, but it's not heavy and it works and the acting's really good and it's sweet and it's not mean. So I definitely would recommend that over your long weekend. I believe it comes out Friday, I think. But yeah. Now I've waited. How long have we waited? A year at least for House of Dragons. We got that back on. That first episode was phenomenal. And I mean, storytelling wise, visually wise, phenomenal. If you haven't watched House of Dragons, you're a Game of Thrones person, you could skim those first two seasons pretty quick. You could devour that and then start up on this third season because it's pretty good so far. Looking forward to I'm recording this on Sunday, so I haven't seen episode 2 yet. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. What else? I'm still plowing through Golden Girls. It still makes me happy every night. And the other night, I was speaking to Tara Stevenson, whose father designed the show. And she said, "Oh, thank you for talking about my dad's work." And yes, he had an art director help him. And I emailed with John Schaffner, who I've said has also decorated the show. So I did find out because at first I couldn't find out who decorated. They didn't have one credited, but yeah, I mean, it wasn't as predominant to have a separate set decorator before, especially in multicam, I guess. So, um, yeah, Golden Girls just makes me laugh. I don't care. I mean, if you want to laugh, put on Elle or Golden Girls this weekend. That's what I'm gonna say. Happy birthday, America, to that. I that's that's what I'm giving you. Um, I hope everyone has a long, enjoyable weekend. And if you are traveling, please be safe. And while you're sitting in the car traveling, scroll through your photos. If you have a set photo with a milkshake spilled on a white carpet, baby, send it my way. And we'll give it a little post of why we should respect the set. How about that? All right, let's dive into this episode. Again, I had a fun time putting this together. It took me a while to put this together. I have it visually online on the YouTube channel. So if you want to check that out, also some visuals to go along with what I'm talking about. I'm giving a lot of facts here, so please give me a break with that. All right, I hope you enjoy. Hello and welcome to Decorating Pages. My name is Kim Wannop. I'm looking at the production design of summer blockbusters. When people talk about summer movies, they usually talk about opening weekends and box office records, but the films that we really stay with us are often ones that gave us a place we could immediately understand. What is a blockbuster? It's not just a movie that makes a lot of money. A blockbuster is a movie that becomes an event. It is heavily marketed, it is widely released, culturally unavoidable, and big enough that studios start looking at it less like a film and more like a business model. That's why Jaws is usually called the birth of the modern summer blockbuster. It wasn't the first successful movie by any means, but it changed how Hollywood thought about summer. Universal opened it wide, backed it with a huge TV advertising campaign, and turned a shark movie into a national event. Before Jaws, summer was not automatically the season for the studio's biggest movies. After Jaws, everyone wanted their own version. So for this episode, I'm going decade by decade, showing the biggest movies of the decade, and then breaking down 6 of them, and in a design way. So we'll get to the design. It's very interesting to see how the films change with each decade. And this episode goes from Amity Island to Barbie Land. So there's a lot of Star Wars in between. By the way, I'm not leaving out Titanic or Avatar. Those are not summer movies, just so you know. Don't write me in the comments. They were December releases. So let's start with the top 3 summer blockbusters by decade. Before I get into the design aspect of 6 of the films, I really want to talk about and give a quick look at the top summer blockbusters by decade. I'm using worldwide box office, not adjusted for inflation, and I'm looking at films released in a traditional summer window, which is May through August. These are not necessarily the best design films in every decade, but they are the movies that became events. We'll get into the design later. And for this episode, I'm interested in why audiences showed up and what kind of worlds these films gave them once they got there. So from 1975, the release of Jaws, to 1979, let's talk about those blockbusters in the 70s. First, the biggest one, you have Star Wars. Duh. May 25th, 1977 release, a gross of about $775.4 million, with the production designer John Barry, Norman Reynolds, and Leslie Dilley, and set decorator Roger Christensen. It's Star Wars. Everyone's seen it. It influenced tons of films after it and its own, and it completely changed the look of science fiction. Dirty ships, worn metals, the desert land, a future that looks old, used, and patched up. We're going to get into Star Wars in a bit. So let's go to Jaws, released June 20th, 1975, making $497.9 million. Production designed by John Alvarez and set decorated by John M. Dwyer. Jaws gives you the grounded realism of a New England beach town, a town that feels real enough to make that shark really scary. I mean, from the house that they're moving into, the beach scenes, we will get into that. I'm going to examine Jaws also. Grease, released June 16th, 1978, and made $396.3 million. Set production designer Philip Jeffries and set decorator James Berkeley. I mean, I was kind of surprised to see Grease here, but not really. Grease gives you very stylized nostalgia. The diners, the cars, your high school, and it is the 50s remembered through a 70s musical lens. I mean, the sleepover scenes I always loved. And the prom. I mean, who doesn't want that kind of prom? As decorators, I know we try to do that all the time. It's a great decade because of the films are so different. One is a shark movie, one is a space opera, and one is a musical where adults are pretending to be teenagers. So the 1970s gave us the beginning of this machine. But for me, the 70s, I love the design of the 70s, the realism and grittiness of the films that came out then. And so to me, what's interesting when I put together this list is seeing how different each decade is in the design and what audiences were drawn to. The 70s, there was a lot more realism, and then going back to your high school days, and then the mind expanding of Star Wars. So let's hop on into the 80s. Why not? And let's start with E.T., who was one of my favorite movies. It's I saw it in the theater. I remember seeing it in the theater. And interesting, today you get a movie in the theater for maybe a month. This was held almost a year in the theaters. So I don't think I might not have seen it in 82. It might have been later. I remember it being cold, so it probably wasn't, it was probably November or something. I really don't know. But E.T. released June 11th, 1982, a worldwide gross of about $797.3 million. Production design by James Bissell, who you can hear on this podcast, and I did talk to him about E.T. when I had him on. I was in awe. Set decorated by Jackie Carr. E.T. finds wonder in the ordinary. It's a suburban house, that kid's bedroom, a closet full of stuffed animals, and bikes on the street, and we will get more into E.T. in a bit. It's the iconic scene. Empire Strikes Back, released May 21st, 1988, $549 million. Production designer Norman Reynolds and set decorated by Michael Ford. Design-wise, I mean, you really, really, well, you really loved Star Wars. People really went to see it. They weren't just like there. It was such an event, and you went so many times to see movies in yesteryear. I don't want to say it, but the 80s is really where Spielberg and Lucas perfected the idea that fantasy works best when it feels physical. These worlds are huge, but they have realism. They have dirt and clutter and all the little details, but yet somehow they feel fanciful. If you're ever on the Fox lot, there is a huge mural on the side of a stage of this iconic window that was designed with Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader fighting in front of it. So I always love seeing that because of the iconicness of that window and the light shining through on them. I've always loved looking at that whenever I'm at Fox. Number three was Return of the Jedi, released May 25th, 1983, with a worldwide gross around 482.4 million. Again, designed by Norman Reynolds and set decorated by Michael Ford. They were busy during the 80s, huh? Jabba's Palace, which is basically, I mean, you even get texture through the windows because of the blinds that they have. It's it's so iconic, and that stage that he comes out on, the again pulling all of the Star Wars previous looks with the look that is repetitive and what you've grown to know. And so, I mean, it's such a difference. It's such so different in every movie because then in Endor and the Ewok village, they take fantasy back to handmade materials, the trees and the ropes and the platforms, those woven textures, and a world that feels built instead of manufactured like the Death Star. So yeah. I mean, each film in Star Wars has such a different look. It's crazy. So let's talk about the 80s versus the 90s. I mean, the scale. Oh no. That's why these movies stay with us. The scale is big from the 80s, but the design is tactile. You can feel the spaces, and apparently the 80s also understood that kids would just accept emotional damage. I mean, E.T. makes you cry. It's really sad, but they let us have it. The 70s versus the 80s, I think what's interesting is the shift that starts by providing like the impossible can feel real. I think that's what attracted audiences. The fantasies grow bigger, but still are kind of handmade. The 70s with Jaws and Star Wars are completely different, but grounded in visual texture. And Star Wars, in that example, does the same for the 70s, where in space, making the galaxy feel dirty and old and repaired and lived in. The 80s with E.T., Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi takes a push into more emotional fantasy. So the real evolution is not that the blockbusters got less grounded, they got bigger. And the 80s clearly discovered that if you like Star Wars and you like aliens, you got a lot of movies coming at you. So, yeah. But summer movies. Keep it there. The 90s are where the summer blockbuster starts feeling like a fully built branded world. Not a wait and see and let's make sheets and star figures, you know what I mean? They knew what they were doing. Jurassic Park was released June 11th, 1993. It made $1.858 billion. Okay. I mean, I know I saw it twice in the theater. I remember being so in awe of those dinosaurs. And the landscape of Hawaii really brought me in there. It is the perfect example because the design is just not supporting a dinosaur story. It's selling the idea of the park. That's the design. The gates, the jeeps, the logo, the visiting center, the control room. Jurassic Park feels like a real attraction before it becomes a disaster. It's production design as corporate confidence, which is hilarious considering the whole movie, everything everybody does is wrong. So, I mean, you can't really get away from it. The landscape and everything, I feel, so brought people into this prehistoric world, and it's in Hawaii. It's unbelievable. So yeah, Jurassic Park. Star Wars, no surprise, Phantom Menace. It was released May 19th, 1999, with a world gross of about 1.846 billion. Not too far behind. It is production designed by Gavin Bouquet. And The Phantom Menace explains Star Wars into a much more polished and formal design language. Compared to the original trilogy, patched together world, this film gives you Naboo and the Senate and the Gungan City, the pod racing. I mean, it's more architectural. And whether or not people love this movie, the design is still doing a lot of the expansion to believe this story. Number 3 for the decade is The Lion King, released June 15th, 1994, making $979 million. Art directed by Chris Sanders. The Lion King gives us animated environmental design with a huge emotional clarity. Pride Rock, the Elephant Graveyard, the Scars World, they show power, danger, exile, loss. I mean, it's scary when those, I forget what they're called, they come running at you. It was a scary scene and it was animated. So, and another iconic shot by the moon I thought was a fun throwback. So the 90s summer blockbuster starts feeling like a fully built branded world. Disney, again, Star Wars, and then the dinosaurs. So what changed from the 80s to the 90s is that the blockbuster design starts moving forward from tactile fantasy into fully organized world building. The 80s films still feel very handmade, and I mean, but the 90s is, the physicality is still there, but the world's become more systemized. Jurassic Park is not just a place, it's a branded attraction. So the texture of the 80s, I feel, gets lost a little bit, and the CGI picks up a little in the 90s, which lends to the story, it lends to the design. It's not bad. It's just a different type of storytelling through design. Let's go to the 2000s blockbuster. Do you like how I use that papyrus? I hate that font, but I use that papyrus font on this one because the ode to Avatar, since it's not really in the list here. I knew when I first read, I was like, oh no, this list is wrong. I'm looking it up and it's wrong. And then I was like, oh no, it's just summer. So I even double checked because I was like, where are they? Where's Titanic? The 2000 blockbuster design feels like fantasy getting older, darker, and more. I guess I don't want to say darker. I guess it just gets more integrated into more details. It's not just the vast background that got CGI'd, it's every little detail now. That's how they're moving into designing with that. So after the more, tactile worlds of the 80s and 90s, the 2000s, they lean a little bit more into historical storytelling in 2000s. And so two of them, the first one, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, released July 7, 2006, making 1.866 billion. And then the Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, released in 07, making 961 million. Production designed by Rick Hendricks and decorated by Cheryl Karasik. It's a perfect example, really, because those worlds, they just feel so aged before the story really gets into it. The ships, the taverns, those ropes, the candlelight, it's very stressed, but in a beautiful way. Everything looked like it survived weather and violence and the curse, really. So, all of these worlds in these two movies, I mean, the snow on the ships is a huge design element. Bringing any sort of weather into a set always gives it a different life. The huge builds of the ships, whether some of it was practical or extended, they're still huge design feats. And then bringing it back into personal spaces of the captain's quarters on ships, and that that map in the middle of the table that's designed is so beautiful. It really is. It's a beautiful ship. The third film of the decade is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, released July 11th, 2007, a worldwide gross of 942.9 million. So, Harry Potter, it's the end, right? That makes a huge amount of money. Production designed by Stuart Craig, all of them were. Set decorated, this one by Stephanie McMillan. It gives us a very different kind of fantasy weight. The Ministry of Magic, the Palace, Hogwarts. There's darker interiors in this one and show the magical world being very political and a little bit more dangerous at the end. The design is not just whimsical anymore. It has rules, history, class. You've been with these sets for a long time. We're going to get to that. I'm going to talk about that. So I think the biggest shift, oh, I forgot to change that. Sorry. The biggest shift from the 90s to the 2000s in the blockbusters is how CGI changes the relationship between production design and the impossible. The 90s were groundbreaking because of the digital effects and still balancing practical sets and real locations. The CGI is not carrying the whole movie by itself, but it is being supported in a very tangible environment. But by the 2000s, the effects have improved and the worlds can become so much larger and more fluid, especially with pirates, with the elements and what would have been much harder to pull off a decade earlier and not look as good can now look phenomenal, and the details can be just impeccable. So the 90s feel like the era where CGI is proving it can become something inside the physical world, where the 2000s start becoming more confident using these elements as part of the design. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's such a story builder to be able to have these tools to expand the design at this point. The stories just get so much bigger. Not that like Cleopatra or Gone with the Wind, like those were big stories that they told before and still achieved everything, but they still used some painted backgrounds. Like, this extending sets has been being done since the 20s. It's been 100 years. So it's just gotten better to do. It's just gotten better. I don't know. It's more believable or something. The 2010s are where the blockbuster machine is no longer being invented or tried or branded. It's a full money making machine. It's really, I think, a turning point, because the 2000s are where the visuals were expanding and CGI becoming more stronger. But the 2010s push that even further. The imagery is bigger, smoother, cleaner, more technically advanced, but it also starts to feel more calculated. These films are not just designed to support one story, they're designed to support a franchise, a brand, a theme park, a sequel. It's the word synergy without irony. Like, it's going to happen. And look at what comes back. The biggest grossing of the 2010s, 2015, $1.672 billion. Jurassic World. Production designed by Ed Varex and Larry Diaz, set decorated. Jurassic World is the perfect example because it takes the original idea of Jurassic Park and turns it into a fully functioning luxury resort. The design is bigger, shinier, more corporate, and more commercial. And a park that looks like it has excellent marketing department, absolutely no survival instincts, right? The whole thing is designed to feel like a dinosaur park has finally become a successful business. But once again, the dinosaurs prevail. Sorry, spoiler. Shocking, I know. But again, you're building this whole world within a world. You're almost making fun of us. But yeah, and it goes wrong. The Lion King, again, The Lion King. This is released July 19th in 2019. It made $1.662 billion. Production designed by James Chinland. I should say art directed for an animator. The Lion King remake takes digital realism to an extreme. The landscapes, the animal scale, the fur, the natural textures are technically stunning. The visuals exceed way more what the 2000s could do, but it also raises the question of what happens when realism becomes so polished that it starts to push out some of the theatricality and emotional exaggeration of animation. It becomes almost like a nature documentary. And with the real animals and, well, not even real animals, but the real looking animals and talking and getting the personalities out of these animals and still telling that classic story that we all fell in love with. I do think it was successful. I've seen it. I still prefer the animation, but it is a wonder. It's an absolute wonder that to come from the 90s to 20 years later to get to this. It's very beautiful to me. Is it a money grab? Probably. Why not? It made $1 billion. Why not? So go for it. The third biggest moneymaker is The Avengers. It is released May 2012, made $1.521 billion. It is designed by James Chitlin and set decorated by Victor Zolfo. The Avengers is the clearest sign of the decade's biggest shift. The production design has to make separate character worlds operate inside one another in a shared universe. The Stark Tower, the Shield spaces, they are not just cool sets, they are franchise infrastructures. The design has to hold multiple heroes, multiple tones, future movies, an entire cinematic universe, and it's already planning its next 10 movies. So when you get these character scenes, and these are big builds, these are big sets, they are so strategically planned out for the next one. It's very impressive because you can go and you can watch all these movies and look back at the other ones and the clues are there. It's very detailed out and masterfully designed, I would say. So, compared to the 2000s, where fantasy design was getting richer and darker and more effective driven, the 2010s feels more like it's a business model that's taken the wheel and not really the entertainment value. You know what I mean? The visuals are more advanced, the worlds are bigger, and the design is often incredibly impressive. But there is also a sense that every environment has to do more than tell the story, it has to extend the brand. It has to set up the next thing. It has to be recognizable and repeatable and profitable. The sets are no longer just sets, they are infrastructures for a machine that knows exactly how to sell this dream. And that's part of the design. That's bravo to the designers and decorators who can pull that off. Because it might be frustrating or it might be exhilarating. I don't know. But that's, I would think that it's one or the other. That you either have this tremendous pressure to know that you're building this franchise or the freedom, because I would have to think the money's there to make it happen. So the 2020s so far are already giving us three very different versions of what a summer blockbuster can be. Inside Out 2, released June 14th and 24, $1.699 billion. Art directed by Jason Deemer. I mean, it is a really good animated movie and a really good animated sequel. I have to say, the design of the memory bank and the little girl's rooms, and I mean, creating that world that is in her head, it's a really good design. It is, and it lends to the story. Everything has to connect in her mind. All of these emotions and feelings have to connect. So it's a hard thing, but it made a lot of money. I liked it. I like both of them. The second highest grossing movie thus far in this decade is Tom Cruise in Top Gun Maverick, released May 27th, 2022. It made about $1.496 billion. Now, it did get re-released, which brings it a little higher. Just throwing that in there. Production designer Jeremy Hindle and set decorator Jan Pascal, who you can hear on this podcast. God, it had everything in this film. I really liked it because that feeling of the original Top Gun, they really achieved in this sequel. How many years? 40 years later, was it? They really achieved it. And the bar was so well designed with all the little airplanes, all the mugs. There's so much detail in the bar. There's so many flashbacks and character details that are thrown into these sets. Um, when you see the Iceman's home office and all of his awards and attributes, and to see him in his home environment, and made something of himself. He didn't turn out, I think, how I thought he would. So I think, I don't know, I really like this film. I could see why it did so well, although I think, spoiler if you haven't seen it, earmuffs, I think he should have died, but I guess Tom Cruise never dies. I think that's a thing in his contract. Barbie. Barbie is the third highest grossing thus far of the decade, released July 21st, 2023, and made 1.447 billion approximately. Production designer Sarah Greenwood and set decorator Katie Spencer. Now we're going to get into this more. It's a fabulously designed set. It makes you feel good. It makes you dance in your seat. It makes you remember your Barbies if you had them. It makes you want to play with Barbies. It does it all. It crosses over from fantasy to realism, and it's seamless. So we're gonna get into Barbie in a little bit. So the 2020s are already giving us these very, very different looks. I mean, those three movies pretty much can't be too like any more far apart. So after the 2010s built that franchise machine and squeezed everything out of it, the 2020s feel more like a reset. And we could see that very much in the box office that's happening right now in summer of 26. These films are still massive, but the most interesting ones are finding different ways to justify their scale. Inside Out 2 turns emotion into architecture, abstract spaces and memory and anxiety. And it gives just that, that tinge of, is this happening inside of me? Whether it's number one or number two. And with, like I said, with Maverick, the legacy of that, and not over decorating it, not overdoing it, and giving the story just enough to come through. And then with Barbie, it's just a cultural event, right? I mean, it's pink, it's plastic, it's the dream house. How can you go wrong with that? So if 2010s were about the machine and monetizing, the 20s are about blockbusters trying to prove they still have a reason to exist. One looks inward, one looks backward, and one looks to build a giant pink fantasy. So I would say, just to let you know, the interesting thing about these movies is that for the Academy Awards, only 6 of these films were nominated for Best Production Design out of 19. Massive summer blockbusters. Star Wars is the only one that actually won, which is wild to me because E.T., Jurassic Park, Avengers, I mean, Barbie didn't win. It's films where visual world is a huge reason people remember them, and yet, shockingly enough, they didn't win the Oscar. So part 2 of this podcast, let's jump into the design of some of these films. Let's really analyze them. Again, Jaws, let's start with that. Release date of June 20th, 1975. Production design by Joe Alvarez and set decorator by John M. Dwyer. It was shot mainly on Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts, which stood for the fictional town of Amity Island. Other locations included South Beach, State Beach, Edgartown, and other areas around the island. The location choice is a huge part of why the movie works. Martha's Vineyard doesn't feel like a backlot pretending to be a beach town. It has texture that's already built in, the harbors, this jetty that we're looking at. It's small town feels. and it gives the economy also of this. A small New England beach town is terrorized by a great white shark right before the 4th of July weekend. Oh, let's know. So lovely and relaxing. Bring the kids, come to the beach. Oh, and by the way, there's a shark. And that's the problem. That's the thing, is that these towns are relying on the tourists to come. So you can't say don't come. It's kind of like that new show Widow's Bay, by the way, if you haven't seen that. But yeah. So what makes the design of Jaws so smart is that it never feels like it's trying to impress you. There's such realism in all of it. It feels very ordinary. And the home that they're moving into, the decor of that is sparse, and there's not a lot of like personal details that's in there. Um, the shark itself is terrifying, obviously, but the town makes you understand that there's pressure before that shark gets there. They need to have tourism. The summer is the income, the beach is the product. So they need to sell safety, whether that shark came or not. They're always trying to do that. One of the things too the film does is it goes into these personal spaces, the captain's space, their bedroom. Um, I love the bedroom. I love the wallpaper of the bedroom. I love her side table. She's smoking in bed. The captain's the shark skulls that this captain has in his little shack is really unbelievable. I have another video about it. The canned food that he has on the wall. It's he's living on a hammock. I mean, the character detail of the captain's shack is fantastic. Um, the orca is the boat and it becomes the final set piece. And it does exactly what it should do. It traps them. There are three characters trapped on a boat. And it gives such complexity to the anxiety that they're they're on the boat. We need a bigger boat. It's true, because you're trying to fight off this shark. It's a great film. It's a great rewatch if you haven't seen it lately. And I completely understand why audiences kept going back for it. Jaws won 3 Academy Awards, including Best Film Editing, Best Original Dramatic Score, Best Sound. It was also nominated for Best Picture. It was not nominated for production design. It didn't win. That year nominated was Barry Lyndon, The Hindenburg, The Man Who Would Be King, Shampoo, and The Sunshine Boys. I did a study of 1975 production design, so you can hear that also. I loved watching those films. So Jaws, the design that's brilliant is the grittiness that it's giving you and the realism in panic. It invokes such panic when they're on this boat. It's a completely believable town, and it's a completely believable situation where these 3 guys just thought they could go out and kill the shark. So that is Jaws. Let's go to the next one that we're going to examine. Oh, look, here's more Jaws. I forgot to flip the blood scene of killing the guy. How could I forget that? But look at the set dressing in the water. Look at that. The boat set dressing. Okay, so the next one I want to examine a little bit is Star Wars. Star Wars, later retitled Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, which I don't go for, released in May of 77. Production design team was John Barry, Norman Reynolds, and Leslie Dilley. Set decorated by Roger Christensen. Star Wars was shot across several locations, which is a big part of why the world feels so big even before we leave this first film. Key locations that they had throughout the world was Tanzania. Elstree Studios in England was where their major sets were made. Death Valley, California. Guatemala they were in for the Rebel base. And that mix works because you need these different textures, and reproducing them is great, and it's a lot of talent to do it, but if you can go to the locations and get the real architecture and landscape, that helps tremendously in your visual storytelling. If you don't know, the story of Star Wars is Luke Skywalker is basically like a farm boy, and he's brought in by the rebellion to help get a message from R2D2. And if he gets that message across, it could destroy the Death Star. The design of Star Wars changed sci fi because it made the future feel old. This is not a clean, shiny showroom science fiction. It gave us dust and grease and dents and cables. Um, Especially even the world that Luke comes from. There's tons of sand, but yet there's futuristic elements in there. The ships look repaired and replaced things. It's used furniture. And that's why the film really works. The world feels like it existed before the camera arrived. Nothing feels decorated. Nothing feels too pretty. Um, that Millennium Falcon, it's not elegant. It's not clean. It's not trying to impress anyone. It's the fastest ship in the universe, but it's kind of a shithole inside. The Death Star is the opposite. Clean lines, hard surfaces, repetitiveness. The scale is huge, and it's not warm. It's not, you know, the integrated lighting design for Star Wars is so impeccable and so, repeated in so many films. It's awesome. The contrast tells you everything. The rebellion feels improvised in humans, where the empire feels cold and machine like. You understand the power struggle before anyone has to explain it. So for Star Wars, it won Academy Award for Best Art Direction and Best Set Decoration, as I said. It also won Oscars for visual effects, costume design, film editing, original score, and sound. Yeah, Star Wars. I mean, it was not, so it's nominated and it won. It was up against Airport 77, Close Encounters of a Third Kind, The Spy Who Loved Me, and The Turning Point. That's what its competition was that year. All right, let's get into ET. Again, you can listen to my interview with production designer Jim Bissell. I got him to talk about ET. What are those corn stalks? I don't understand it. he gets into it. So ET released in 1982, June 11th, and Jim Bissell, production design and set decorated by Jackie Carr. And God, I love ET. It was shot around Southern California, especially in the Valley. If you look on TikTok, you can go look at that house anytime you want because people are constantly filming it. Porter Ranch, Granada Hills, the Northridge area neighborhoods, and a stage design done at Universal, I think. Um, the 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 neighborhoods that they picked is such a big part of why the movie feels familiar. It's not a perfect fantasy suburb. It feels like it's a real neighborhood where kids are riding their bikes and they have clutter in their rooms. And, you know, I love the kitchen table. I love this scene. I love that that table is a, a awkward, weird shape. It's so 80s. The light hanging over it with the colors, and it's muted. The browns and the plaid that they have on the banquette. I love it. I love this dining room scene. I always wanted to have Elliot's room. I was obsessed with the rainbow blinds that he had in his room. I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. So it really is the type of design that makes you, remember your own childhood. Um, I just wish I had those blinds. The design of ET is small, but it's in the best way. It does not build wonder with castles and spaceship. It's in a house. The magic here is his bedroom, that he has an alien in his bedroom. The closet. I mean, the genius of putting that stained glass window in the closet. Genius. Um, the backyard, the bikes. You're going to have to listen to the other interview of why there's corn stalks. I'm going to make you do that. Their house is cluttered and dirty. Not dirty, but like she's not picking up. She's a working mom of 3 kids. It's why it works. The house feels lived in, not styled. It's not, you know, it's not random. It feels, you know, love. There's love in that house, but she didn't have time to do the dishes. The bedroom is the best example of the toys and the posters and just, things kids have around. Um, the iconic scene of the bikes when they're in the medical tents inside the house. Remember, that's all inside their house that they did that. Um, just making that difference of their house. You can see behind the Visqueen, you can see the paintings that they still have hanging on the walls, but they've built this makeshift medical center in the house. It's so sterile and so different from what that house is. There's such iconic shots of like Elliot telling his brother that E.T.'s still alive, or Elliot running down that plastic tunnel. Such a beautiful shot. Again, the kids on the bikes, I always so perfect. And then goodbye to ET and designing so that you could still see him as the door closes up and not, ripping off of Star Wars because Star Wars was already out. Making your own design of how that door closes. That's, I bet, a real design decision. E.T. received 9 Academy Award nominations and won 4. It won original score, visual effects, sound effects editing. Um, that year, Gandhi, Annie, Blade Runner, La Travista, and Victor Victoria were nominated. E.T. didn't get nominated. Gandhi won. Spoiler. Blade Runner didn't win. Just remember that. All right. Let's dive into Jurassic Park because I know I talked about it already, but I want to dive a little bit more. Released in 1993, production designer was Rick Carter, and set decorator was the great Jackie Carr, who I love, love, love her work. So the film was shot mainly in Hawaii and in California. Key locations were the Kauai in Oahu, Universal Studios in Hawaii in Hollywood, and Kauai gives the movie that huge prehistoric feeling. Let me get to that. I mean, the landscape does so much before the dinosaurs even enter the frame. It looks lush and dangerous, expansive, which is exactly what they were trying to sell. So if you don't know, it's about a billionaire who built a park and he's recreated dinosaurs. And it goes wrong. If you haven't seen Jurassic Park, that's a shame. It holds up. Don't watch the other ones. Watch the original one. The wonder that it gives you as a viewer, it's a phenomenal film. Um the production design is a beautiful lie in this film. The park looks safe because every piece of design tells you it is. All of those wires that are supposed to keep the dinosaurs out, they fail. Um, Everything is there to convince you that the park is safe and controlled. Why is I have a picture of Jeff Goldblum like his shirt off. I don't know why that was. I had to put this in here because I was like, why is that even in here? It's so weird. But let's get off of Jeff Goldblum. Even the design of the dining room and the murals on the wall, the visitor center, is such a key set. It tells you that, he was from the beginning. When you get there, he's welcoming you into this world. Be amazed, trust this, buy this dream, ignore all the, all the real security that's out there because they could come running after you at any moment. Um, the design of this film is so integral in the storytelling. That's what I love. I love the design of this film because I was sold, and I believed it all. And I went to see it twice in the theater. It's petrifying. That kitchen scene is petrifying. I mean, I'm sure that was a set, obviously, but to choreograph all that with the dinosaurs coming in and the sounds and where they can hide, that's a big scene. So yeah, Jurassic Park won 3 Academy Awards. It won for Best Visual Effects, Sound Effects Editing. Sorry, it was not nominated for Production Design. That year, Schindler's List, Addams Family Values, The Age of Innocence, Orlando, and Remains of the Day were nominated, with obviously Schindler's List winning. Okay, number 5. Let's go step back to the Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. So this was released in 2011. The kids are so much older in this movie. It's crazy. Production designer Stuart Craig and set decorator Stephanie Miller. Stuart Craig had done all of the films, and to put how many years into this and knowing the inside of out of every single character and every single design piece is such a testament to his talents. 10 years at Levinson Studio they had, and the major parts of the set were builds there. The Hogwarts interior, the battle release related buildings. So yeah, they also shot in Oxford, Scotland, and historical castles and cathedrals around the area. For this final film, the important thing is that Hogwarts had already been visually established over the years. So when the final battle happens, the audience isn't learning a new world. They're watching a familiar one get damaged. And it's effective and it's manipulative emotionally. Um, you have these old favorites of the first time you see the pictures on the wall that they're talking, and then years later and pictures later they're talking again, but it's at the end of it. It's very impactful to see, familiar places um, being damaged at the end of the story. It's very sad. Hogwarts is not, just this setting anymore. It's a memory. You remember the first time you watched the first one, which feels so long ago, you know? The staircases, the courtyards, those candlelights going up. I mean, there's so many memories from watching all of these different versions of Hogwarts in the story. So that's what gives the final battle such weight. The design challenge is not making destruction look impressive. Anyone can throw around some rubble. The real challenge is damaging a place that the audience already knows and has emotional ties to, and making them feel something with this damage. It has to feel magical and emotional, and it has to give weight to what the story is. The Great Hall does a lot of the work in the film. It becomes, at the end, it just becomes a gathering place for them in fear and survival. There's other great sets in the film that brighten because the film is very dark. Um, but that rubble, I mean, it's a long form production design. The space has changed because the story has changed, and because we have changed with it over all of these versions of the movies in the story. It's just a lot. Like, I don't know. I watched all the Harry Potters, and part one of this was very dark and weighty, and then to get to the end of it was such a kind of relief, but in the end, um sad, because you're at the end of this long journey that as a viewer you have been a part of. The film was nominated for production design. It was also nominated for visual effects, makeup, but Hugo won that year. Other nominations were The Artist, Midnight in Paris, and Warhorse. So yeah. All right, last one. Here we go. Barbie. Barbie released in July of 2023. Production designer Sarah Greenwood and set decorator. There's such a wonderful team, her and Katie Spencer. It's unbelievable. There was a great installation at the Academy of their work of Barbie, and it was phenomenal to see pieces in person and appreciate their work. It was filmed largely at Warner Brothers at Levingston and in England. Barbie Land sets were built there across multiple stages and backlogged spaces. The real world sections, they did shoot some in Los Angeles and Venice Beach and other specific LA spots. It's such a heightened plastic dream world. It's so great. And when that comes to like Venice Beach and that that tone, it's really weird. I do. I didn't love this movie, but I love the design of it. Um the film is about identity and perfection and gender and what happens when a doll suddenly has their own thoughts. But production design wise, this film is such an event. There is no polite way to understate how important the design of this is because it works fantasy and reality and connecting so many girls and their memories. It's a crazy, crazy list to check off if you are a designer or a decorator because you're paying ode to this institution, this iconic world, and making it real. It's a very big job. Everything has to follow doll logic, and that's the design genius. It is fake, but it is not careless. It is controlled and specific and emotional, and rules matter in this world. The color tells the story, the scale, the fake backdrops, the lack of water, no walls in Barbie's houses. That's crazy. But a real detail of when you had a Barbie house that was real. The design is funny. It's doing a lot of character work. Barbie Land shows us a world built for display and fantasy. Nothing is hidden, nothing is private, because why would it be? And when Barbie goes to the real world and suddenly there's real dirt or real traffic, and real consequences, that's a real story there. I just love the design in this film when they go to the weirdo Barbie house. It's fantastic. And how it contrasts with Barbie, her world and Ken's world. And the different shades of pink that play off of each other. The contrast again of the real world and the office and the repetitiveness and the gray dull offices of Mattel. That boardroom is phenomenal with the hearts and the pink chairs and the rainbow and the design of the wall of the window wall, even giving such repetition and kind of a dullness that they live in compared to Barbie's world. And the real world of watching kids play in her daughter's room and how they interact, real and fake, when she's on the beach in Venice or when she's on the beach in Barbie Land. It's the fake fires. I don't know. Every detail is fantastic. Let's see. Barbie was nominated for 8 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Production Design. It won Best Original Song for What Was I Made For? And the production design Oscar went to Poor Things. So Poor Things, Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, and Oppenheimer. That's a good 5 movies right there for production design. That's a hard vote right there, I must say. But yeah. So what I love about looking at these films together is that they provide a blockbuster. Doesn't have to have a visual formula. Jaws doesn't need to be flashy in every frame. It uses restraint and that social get-together as its fear. E.T. finds wonder in the most extraordinary corners of that house, in that closet. And Barbie reminds everyone that artificial doesn't mean shallow. Sometimes the fake world is the most honest one in the movie. And that's what makes production design so powerful. It can be invisible, theatrical, nostalgic, futuristic, emotional, or all of those at once. But when it works, it gives the audience a way into the story before anyone starts talking, and that's key. So the next time someone talks about a summer blockbuster only in terms of budget or box office, look at the spaces. Look at the beach town, the visitor center, the castle, the dream house. That's where a lot of the movie magic is actually happening. So thank you for listening to Decorating Pages. Make sure you've subscribed wherever you listen and head over to the podcast wherever you listen. Like and subscribe on YouTube. And don't forget that you can find many more interviews on the podcast wherever you listen. So I hope you got an earful. I'm Kim Wannop for Decorating Pages.